Alright, in this video we're going to be working on this 1966 Mustang. This has got the 289. This will be the same if you got the C4 transmission. I think some other transmissions use the same part. What's going on with this thing is sometimes when you go to start it, you hit the key and it won't even crank. You wiggle the gear shifter a little bit and then it'll crank and start and run fine. If you put it in the neutral position, sometimes it'll crank, sometimes it won't. And again, same thing. You wiggle the shifter around a little bit and it'll start. So it should be the neutral safety switch causing this issue. I have not checked my reverse lights. Sometimes your reverse lights act up. Apparently it'll cause the same issue. So what you're looking here is the disassembled neutral safety switch. So this one has the two individual wire connectors, and they're color coded when they're on the car. Red goes to red, blue goes to blue, so they're hard to screw up as long as your wiring is, you know, not a real rat's nest. And they changed these pigtails in late '66. So if you're working on like a 67 or even, I don't know if some of the 66 models would have that newer plug where it's a single plug with 4 pins. It's real similar. It's almost like they just sort of molded that thing together just like that and made one plug out of 2. So anyhow, the rest of the workings of the thing are going to be the same no matter what plug you got. Let me get you up on the tripod here. I'll show you what we're doing to this thing. So I was going to buy a new one, and man, they want like 40 bucks. They're hard to come by. They're going to be a Chinese part, so I hate putting new electrical parts on anything if I can help it. So we're going to try to sort of repair this one. So when you take it off your car, I'll maybe show you how I put it back on, but it's real simple. These 2 plugs are in the back up against the firewall. You can't miss them. I mean, they stick out like a sore thumb in there. So you undo those 2 plugs. There's a little clip holds it against the firewall. You don't even have to undo the clip. You just sneak them out from under it. And then this thing is bolted to the transmission. And there's a lot of other videos on YouTube that'll show you. But it's like this. It's bolted with 2 bolts to the transmission. And there's a linkage that goes through this hole. This one has the Ford emblem on it even still, so kind of another reason I sort of wanted to keep it, but I did drill the housing. So let me show you what I've done so far. So this thing is riveted. When you pull it off the car, it's going to look just like that, minus these 2 holes that I just drilled, but it's going to look like this. And when you flip it over, you're going to see 2 rivets back here. I took a 3/16 drill bit and I drilled those rivets enough to where the plastic piece would come off. So you kind of got to play with this. They got a bent flange here. You kind of bend those flanges back a little bit with a pair of pliers, and then this plastic piece comes off. So then on the inside of this plastic piece, now mine is awfully clean now, but it was grungy and nasty when I took it apart. So I've already cleaned it all up. I took a steel wool to the wire pins in here, and you can see, you know, these are the connector pins here. You got a copper bar and then some brass pins. So that's this side here. So I took acetone and some steel wool and lightly worked over this stuff just to clean it up. So that's what that looks like. So set that off to the side for a second. Now this thing is going to look like this, but it's going to have these springs in it. So it's got 2 little compression springs, and they sit in here just like this. And these contact rollers, they're made out of brass. They're different length. One is slightly longer than the other. If you look at the sockets that these sit in, one is a little bigger than the other. So just pay attention and you'll be able to tell that the short one goes on the right side here and the long one goes on the left side here. Now you can get an idea of, as this nylon, I guess that's nylon, that plastic is riding on that shaft on the transmission. And when you shift, that's turning inside here. So it's doing this number, and it's turning against these pins. So depending on the position that your shifter is in, you know, it's turning these pins, which are rolling those contacts around inside there, and they're making contact between here and here, or here and here, or here and here, or any combination. Now again, this thing was disgusting dirty in here. It had a fiber gasket all the way around the outside edge, and the fiber gasket was broken down in here. Pieces of the fiber gasket were laying in the bottom here. When I took it apart, one of those contactors was laying down in there. I think it came apart. I think that little brass roller fell off when I took it apart. But then again, maybe not. Maybe that was causing some of my issues too. I don't know. But it was grungy and nasty. Road grime had been in there. You could tell it was real greasy, where they had greased it up, you know, when they put it together. But that fiber gasket was shot all the way around there. So what I did was cleaned it all up, acetone, you know, get it spotless, and then I continued with that drill bit, that same 3/16 drill bit, and I drilled through that housing. And what I'm going to use is a 3/16 diameter pop rivet. That's just what I got on hand, and I don't know what the capture, maybe that's like a 1/2 inch, something like that, that'll capture. What I'm going to do, what my plan here is to put some dielectric grease in here, sort of around the working surfaces of it, you know, where the thing is, you know, this little bushing is riding on the metal. I want to put some dielectric grease around there, you know, to keep it from wearing real bad. I want to put dielectric grease all on the inside of this plate, sort of on the connectors or contactors, and then along the outside of this plate, I'm going to put a very light bead of RTV, and I doubt it would matter here. It's not a high heat application. So whatever RTV I got laying on the shelf over here, I'm going to put a light bead of RTV around here, and then I'm going to carefully put this thing all back together, and then, you know, my RTV, I'll probably let it set for an hour or two and get sort of firm, and then I'm going to push this back together, and I'm going to use my, I'll probably roll it around a little bit. You can feel it clicking. You can sort of hear that spring in there clicking. Well, now it's all come apart. So anyhow, I'm going to put it together delicately, and then I'm going to use a pop, you know, one of these pop rivets. Put that down in there like that. It's going to clear on the outside. It should look, it'll be fine on the outside. I don't think it's going to interfere with my mounting holes at all. So I'm just going to pop rivet it back together. Alright, so I smeared a little bit of dielectric grease using a Q-tip on the sort of working surfaces of the thing. I'm going to put just a little bit more on these contacts, little bearing roller deals, and stick them in there. So this is the long one. You can see I got a gob of dielectric grease on here to try to hold that spring and roller together, sort of. Mash that down in there, and hopefully that'll sort of adhere itself together. Put that spring down in there. Now, dielectric grease is an insulator. For you guys that know, you know it's an insulator, but it's also really good at keeping down corrosion. And it's a lubricant. So even though it's an insulator, it's good to put on your electrical contacts. So I can feel that going down in there real nice. That one's going down in there real nice. So now the next thing is going to be putting a real light dab of goo around this. And again, hopefully you can see it sort of shining, sort of glistening in the light. I took dielectric grease, put it on the contacts, but I did not put it on this outside edge. And I'm going to try not to put much on here. There we go. Now I guess before we put this together, I want you guys to notice these little holes. See that little hole there? And there's a little hole, now it's got grease in it, but there's a little hole right there at that top corner of the screwdriver. Those are locating holes. When we put this thing back together, put it in the car, depending on your transmission, depending on your switch, one or both of these holes may be accessible. On this one, the hole closest to the center here is the one that we'll be using as a locator, because you can see there's a hole in that bushing. That little hole right there, about 5/32. It's about the diameter of a WD-40 straw. The hole is there, it's also there, and it's in this aluminum housing as well on the back side. I'll show you in a bit. But this outer hole is in this plate, it's in the aluminum plate, but on this piece of white plastic, there's not a hole there. You can see that there maybe was going to be a hole there, but for whatever reason there's a plug in it. So just keep that in mind. Those are locating holes that will come into play when you line this back up, set it on the car, or put it in, on the transmission. You want to stick a straw or something in there and make sure all three pieces are located together before you tighten down these bolts. That's why these bolts are slotted. You slap this switch back up on there, you think you're all good, and you go to hit your key and it still don't work. It might be because your inner part is slightly askew, but if you line all three holes up, use a WD-40 straw or 5/32 drill bit or something, that'll help you to put everything together, put it back in the car right. So I just wanted to show you these holes before they're not visible anymore. That sure felt like everything went together fine. You hear it? Sounds good. Let's go ahead and rivet it. It just occurred to me. This surface may be a problem. I don't know if that rivet sticking down is going to be an issue. I don't know if that surface mates. I know this surface does right here. That just occurred to me. The head of that rivet might cause this to be a no-go. I don't know. We're going to find out. There you go, that's what it looks like from the outside. Well, it sure pulled it down tighter than I want to. That might be an issue. I'm afraid that's going to be an issue. I've been fiddling with this for a couple of minutes. That thing ain't turning. So these rivets pulled that down too tight. We have to drill these rivets. I'm going to hold it together, drill the rivets, and maybe try to rivet it, I don't know, some other way, or somehow get these rivets to loosen up, because this ain't going to work like this. Well, apparently I didn't have the camera turned on, because I thought I turned it off just now and I was just turning it on. So I drilled, again with my 3/16 drill bit, I drilled those rivets out. I found some small washers. Let me show you what I got. I found some of these teeny tiny washers in my parts bin, 2 of them that were already 3/16 inner diameter. I drilled these rivets out, held the thing together to keep the metal shavings out of it. You know, drilled them out, they come right apart. You drill this end and then take a small diameter tool and push the rest of the rivet out, and there's the stem of one of those rivets I just drilled out. Pushed them out, separated the thing, everything still looks fine in there. I then laid these washers between this metal housing and this plastic plate, laid these washers in there, and then put the plastic plate back on top, riveted it again, and now sounds fine. So then what I did, and again you missed it because I didn't have the camera on, got my tester sitting here. I got it on continuity just to see if things are happening in there, and they are. Hopefully you can hear this thing. I need about 3 more hands here. So it's doing things. I checked both plugs. So anyhow, I think we got it back together okay. I noticed, like I said, that there were these bent over tabs, like this was crushed over from the factory on both sides and also on the bottom, and I never fooled with that before, and I think that's probably a good thing that I didn't notice this being bent over before, because now that's what's holding this bottom of this plastic from jumping up and keeping tension. Can you see that flexing? That's what's keeping tension on those springs to keep those pins from jumping out, because that's a lot of flex really. So I think we're in good shape. I'll show you guys. I'll meet you up under the car. I'll show you sort of how this goes on. It's pretty simple. You can't hardly screw it up, but we are going to have to line up. You can see this hole now. Get a aerosol can straw, and again, the outside one here is not going to work, but this inside one. So like right there, it's not going into that plastic. I have to rotate it till I might be able to see the hole. Oh, there went the hole. There's the hole. So we might as well sort of get it close now, I guess. Should go through. There we go. And it should be seated into the back of that plate. So we want to make sure that these things are all jived before we bolt this thing down. You know what? I'm going to leave that in there. I'm just going to cut it off. Cut it off with enough that I can get a hold of it and pull it out when we're in there. So we're just going to leave that little straw in there while we install it. That hopefully won't be in the way to get the part back on there. Alright, so there's those 2 connectors on the back of, like I said, it's right in the middle of the firewall. You can't miss it. I took the air cleaner off just to get it out of the way, but they're sort of supported with that little clip in the firewall there, and then them wires just run down, and we're going to climb up underneath the thing and attach it. Okay, so we're up under the car now, and you can see that this is the switch we're working on. This is like it's a kick down linkage, I believe is what that is. That goes on after the switch. So we got our straw still set here. We've got the transmission in neutral. That is very important. Make sure your transmission is in neutral. If your linkage is out of adjustment, this is going to be even that much harder. But transmission in neutral, that's what this locating pin is set for. So we're just going to set this on here. Now this plastic has got a notch on either side here. The shaft has got grooves cut in it. So those notches and grooves got to jive. And this thing is a fairly snug fit. I'm trying to keep that straw from jumping out. we go. I don't think our rivets are going to be an issue. Hopefully you can see this post sticks out, and it allows clearance for the head of that rivet. So I think that's going to be just fine. I don't think that's going to cause any problems. Still got our straw in there nice and straight. It's not kinked or sort of torqued sideways or anything. Still in a good straight line. Okay, that's that. Pull our straw out. Okay, let's put this linkage back on here. Goes on like that. Looks good. All right, let's go try it. We got it in neutral. Let's go ahead and see if it'll crank. Okay, cranks in neutral. Put it all the way up in park. Now, it was acting up before. If I pulled back on the shift when it was in park, it wouldn't crank. Okay, cool. Huh, it's holding itself forward better than it did before. Okay, just out of curiosity, let's make sure it don't crank in reverse. Nothing. Good. Let's put it down there and drive. Nothing. Good, good. While we're in here, that thing also controls the reverse lights. So I got it in reverse. Let's jump out, check, make sure the reverse lights are on. All right. Cool. Okay, well, I'm going to put it back in park so I don't forget. Turn it back off. That's it. Success. So we saved ourselves 40 bucks. We can say we did it ourselves. We're still using that Ford part. We didn't put a Chinese part on it. Yeah, we drilled a hole in that part, but we got it done tonight. Only took me, I don't know, goofing around with this camera takes me a little bit longer, but I probably could have done that in an hour if I had to. So I hope I helped you guys if you're looking to do something like this. Now, this will be the same procedure on a lot of different transmissions. Like I say, this is a C4 in this car. A lot of different years are going to use this same procedure. So I hope I helped you with this one. If you got any questions, I'll try to answer any questions I can. Leave them in the comments down below. If you like this video, click the thumbs up button. And I could always use a subscribe. So if you guys want to see more stuff going on out here in the shop, I got to get this little Mercury outboard back together. It's been sitting in pieces for a few days. Click the subscribe button, get to see all the videos as I make them. Until the next time, keep on tinkering.